An LGBTQ student group tried to force the nation's oldest Jewish university to recognize it as one of its members. A state court agreed, but the U.S. Supreme Court has put a temporary stay on the whole thing. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. As always, I hope you enjoy this legal education content, and today is the day I earn that subscription. For today's story, we are talking about Yeshiva University, which is the nation's oldest Jewish university, which is based in New York City. New York State Court had ordered Yeshiva University to admit an LGBTQ student group as a recognized student entity of the university. The university objected, citing its own religious freedom, but a state court said, nah, religious freedom isn't that important because LGBTQ is the real religion. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court's put a stay on that, at least for the moment. So let's cover this. Justice Sonia Sotomayor said on Friday that Yeshiva University in Manhattan can for now disregard a state court ruling that it ordered the nation's oldest Jewish university to forcibly recognize an LGBTQ student club, a case she said could be considered by the full Supreme Court. The ruling in the state Supreme Court in Manhattan in June was celebrated by gay students who were trying to force themselves onto a religious institution and their supporters, but were condemned by the administrators at Yeshiva who, think that they still have a First Amendment. The LGBT rights have not yet eroded the First Amendment, it seems, at least the Supreme Court thinks so. America's most prominent institution for modern Orthodox Jewish religion had a bit of a problem with the whole LGBTQ thing. One can only wonder why, right? They derided it as an attack on religious freedom and vowed to appeal. The university sought the emergency appeal before the U.S. Supreme Court. On Friday evening, Justice Sotomayor, acting in her role as the circuit justice acting alone, granted it. The justice, who has jurisdiction over the lower court by virtue of her role as circuit justice, said the state decision was stayed pending further review of the court. So, although she can, of course, refer the whole thing to the U.S. Supreme Court, she does have the power to issue stays on her own name because she's the circuit justice and that's what she chose to do, which is a bit rare for justices to do that. So I guess goes to show how important she thought it was. Yeshiva's case is the latest skirmish in a heated and years-long national battle over religious freedom and whether institutions, even devout religious institutions, can be compelled to provide public accommodation or services to people with differing views. Well, when those views are attacks on their fundamental religious beliefs, as an Orthodox Jewish university, one would think that the First Amendment would trump, but apparently some state judge thought, nah, that's not that important. The state-level court in June had found that Yeshiva was not incorporated as a religious institution, but as an educational one. It's an Orthodox Jewish university. And so must abide by New York City's human rights law, which bars discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation. The First Amendment is not alive and well in New York. I suppose in some ways, all the Second Amendment advocates should be comforted because New York has gone completely out of their way and continues to go out of their way to completely do everything to crap all over the Second Amendment and not give it any recognition. So at least all the Second Amendment people can feel marginally better that the New York state community also treats the First Amendment like crap. That whole misery loves company thing. So at least they hate all the rights. So there's something there somewhere, I guess. Katie Rosenfield, a lawyer for the YU Pride Alliance, which tried to force the university to recognize its LGBT ways in violation of basic Orthodox Jewish principles, said the club would await the final order. It remains committed to creating a safe space for LGBTQ students on YU's campus, an Orthodox Jewish university, to build a community and support each other without being discriminated against. Bina Davidson, the former president of the Pride Alliance, said in an interview in June that Yeshiva's university's refusal to recognize the club had deprived of important resources, including funding speakers and the ability to advertise their events via email that would be sent to the entire student body. I wonder why the university might have a problem with being forced to fund speakers for the LGBTQ group. The former president of the organization said that they sought to get it recognized beginning in 2009. I don't think the Orthodox position is likely to change anytime in the near future. Yeshivas University says its mission is to empower students to apply the values of the Torah. So we can see the conflict right away. In court documents, the university has outlined the ways in which Judaism shapes its curriculum. The school encourages students to attend programs of intense religious study in Israel, and 80% of its students do so because it's an Orthodox Jewish university. It also requires male students to spend between 1 and 6 hours a day studying the Torah, and requires that doors on its campus be adorned with a religious scroll. In its application for the emergency stay, the university wrote that yeshiva's policies and requirements were obviously indications of its status as a religious institution. Yeshivas shouldn't have been forced to go all the way to the Supreme Court to receive this common sense ruling in favor of the First Amendment. Oh yeah, there's that thing. I mean, New York might have its human rights law, but there's still the First Amendment, and last time I checked, amendment beats statute. So yeah, that's just what's going on there. So the Yeshiva University for the moment is allowed to continue having its religious freedom, despite the fact that apparently there are forces in work that want to force an Orthodox Jewish university, the nation's oldest Orthodox Jewish university, to not only recognize an LGBTQ club, which, you know, one would think would have some conflict with its religious beliefs, but on top of that would be required to help fund that group so that it would get access to money and speakers and other things, and use its email system to send out the good news, not the good news of Judaism, but the good news of the LGBTQ. And some state judge somewhere said, yes, I see no problem with that. I see no problem forcing a Jewish university into having an LGBTQ school. But Sada Sotomayor doing something right, and, you know, we'll give credit where credit is due. Sada Sotomayor, acting alone, as Circuit Justice, has put in place a stay to prevent this from happening. So we'll see what happens going forward, but this is an interesting one.